So we still have a couple minutes and we don't have a quorum yet. Hi, Jennifer Henry. Thank you for signing into the chat. I was just going to ask folks if you are not a board member or a staff member, to sign in on the chat and indicate your agency affiliation, if any. That helps us a whole lot. I am at the Lyle Shields room to ensure compliance with the revised provisions of the Open Meetings Act. Hi, everybody. We are really close to a quorum and we're really close to 5:45. So exciting. Hi, Matt. Stephanie, we have a quorum, don't we? Need 5.
I don't know. I just got here.
Oh, okay. We've got 2, 3. Joe Mosage, James Brandel.
Yeah, well, we have 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, I'll hold my horses. I'm very excited to get this started. It's been so long.
Yes, it has.
Yeah, sorry everyone. I don't know what's been up with my camera the last 2 days. I keep getting that flickering thing, so I might have to have it off tonight.
It was pretty cool looking. It's just adds to the flavor.
Have a little bit of a rave effect going on tonight.
Yeah.
That's right.
Should we wait a couple more minutes for the boss?
Yes.
Because you know, Joe Mosage, you're the boss. If he's not here.
I don't want to touch that.
Okay.
I'm kind of glad that we are online tonight because it's like cold and yucky outside. So I'm glad I'm in my house.
You know, it's really like dependent now on the executive orders, which the next one won't be issued, if it is issued, until February 6th. You know, extending the disaster proclamation. So maybe later in the meeting, if there's time, when we get to the schedules, we could talk about what to do if we can no longer use remote. So anyway, it was really good for the DDB this morning because one of them actually had COVID. So still out there. Well, anyway,
John's here.
the boss is here and we're ready to go and you have a quorum.
Excellent. So I will call the Champaign County Mental Health Board meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Matt Hausman,
Here.
Daphne Maurer, Alexa McCoy, Molly McClay, Joe Omosagie,
Here.
Elaine Palencia,
Here.
Jen Straub,
She's here somewhere.
Jen Straub.
She's back.
I saw her here earlier.
Yeah.
Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim,
Yes.
and Molly McClay is here.
Yes.
And did Jen Straub come back?
Yes.
I'm here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. With that, I will move to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to
Nope, go ahead, Elaine.
Okay, you could second. I move to approve the agenda.
And I will second that.
All right, have a roll call, please.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Almosagie,
yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub, Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim,
Yes. That,
Stephanie, Alexa McCoy has also joined the meeting. Stephanie. has also joined the meeting.
uh, I can't hear if she's saying something or if she just has her mic on.
yeah, I can't tell either.
I guess we can move to the citizen. There might be some feedback from Alyssa's.
Stephanie or Lynn, can you mute that?
Okay, I did. Hey. I muted that, but the sound is still.
Can you hear me? Sure.
There we go. I think now it works. All right.
So I wanted to let you know that because this is public input, I would like to step out in the hall and make sure no one is here because there might be someone to come to give public input. So I'm going to disappear for a second. Wish me luck.
So I'll just restate that this is the citizen input section for public participation. Anyone's welcome to make a statement. Please limit your statements to 5 minutes.
Nope.
No, all right. Seeing no citizen input, we'll move on to my comments. I was notified that from Lynn that we had an agency executive director pass away, Cheryl Bouch. She was a director of family service and had been involved with the family service for over 27 years. She left a successful law practice in order to serve the community. Even as she was diagnosed with cancer almost 5 years ago, she was a pillar of the community and continued to work to enrich the lives of older adults and others in Champaign County. Under her guidance, family service continued to serve the community throughout the pandemic. I know we're all grateful for her service to the community, to the underserved and to the vulnerable. I know she'll be dearly missed. So, and then, you know, on a different note, I do want to welcome Jen Straub to the board. I know she's our board member from the county board, correct? And then I also want to congratulate Elaine Palencia and Jane Sprandel to their reappointments to our board. I know all of you will provide a great and different and unique perspective to the board, and it's really appreciative to have all of you guys with us. Thanks. And then the next item will be Lynn's comments, if she has any.
Well, I had all those things listed just in case. So with whatever my time is for comments, I'd like to, if it's okay with the chairperson, yield my time so that Ms. Straub could introduce herself to the group. She said she's not scared to do that.
I'm not scared, but I'm not very interesting either. Hi, I'm super excited to be on the board. I currently work at Cunningham Township, where I bullied Kyle into giving me this position. Before that, I got a master's in school counseling. I have an unreasonable amount of children and animals, and I'm just really happy to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're glad that you're part of the board. So it'll be exciting to see your contributions over the next couple of years. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the mental health board meeting minutes from November 16th, 2022.
If there's no discussion, I make a motion to approve the minutes from the CCMHB meeting on November 16th, 2022.
I will second that motion. Can we get a roll call, please?
Molly McClay. Joe Osagie,
yeah, yes,
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Did you mute her, Lynn?
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right. The next item is the vendor invoice list on pages 7 through 13.
I have to say at first, I was like, holy smokes, this is a lot. But I remember this was December and January.
All right. If there is no discussion, I'll move to approve the vendor list. Do I have a second?
I'll
second,
second.
All right. Can we get a roll call?
Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Osagie,
yes,
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim,
Yes. So now we're on to new business. So we are going to be talking about the Redeploy Illinois Juvenile Justice. We have someone from Cunningham Children's Home and the Juvenile Redeploy Planning Grant Coordinator that'll present on the efforts.
You actually have an additional speaker who I did not include in the agenda, and that's Erica Hughes from Redeploy. And we have this evening's speakers have additional information. So there are a couple things in your board packet, but then posted as addenda are 2 PowerPoint presentations from them. So y'all should be able to share the screen, and if that's okay, then you can control the timing of the slides, if that's all right. Sam Smith has just joined us, and he's one of the speakers.
Okay, I think I'm going to start off. Is that right, Sam?
Good evening. Pardon me for running a little late. Lovely to see some faces and some names. Yes, Pat, that's correct.
Okay, and I'm going to be the quickest. If I could get to the part that shows me where I'm supposed to go on the screen. I have things hiding what I need to get to, but here you go. I am not going to go into a whole lot of details on system of care, but Sam and I talked about queuing this up to show some interesting dynamics happening in the juvenile justice world. And so I'm going to begin with the system of care framework. I'm not going to read this all to you, but would highlight that, you know, the system of care is an effective and community-based supports. I have added some parentheses there in the mental health. And kind of the cool thing about tonight is Sam and Erica will go over redeploy, so you can put juvenile justice in those parentheses. And what that means is that probably one of the most challenging systems to shift because of court and a variety of other things is beginning to look at coordinated networks, partnering more with families and youth, more cultural linguistic, and even looking at some of the aspects of you know, the principles of system of care. So to kind of cue that off, we're kind of late in Champaign County to get on board with the redeploy Illinois. And in particular, because of our FST program, I've been attending some meetings across the state and attended one that Sam and Erica invited us to, and we have a planning group that works together. And so we haven't really done a lot of this work yet, but it was real exciting to go over there and hear other organizations across the state, Champaign being one of the last counties to step in. So I'll let Sam and Erica tell more details about that. So I'm kind of a newbie, but what excited me is seeing system of care principles in the juvenile justice system. That is really unusual. You can see what the principles are. It is exciting to see more elements of our system of care being implemented across the state. And so here, this is one of them. I'm stealing the thunder of one of their slides, but here's one of the wraparound process that we use in system of care when we have a really functioning one. The italicized ones are the ones that you will see from the slideshow that Sam and Erica are showing. So to imagine that we are thinking beyond the legal system and more about all the other needs that children and families need was really exciting. And so I've kind of done an adaptation to some of the system of care slides that I had. But here's the kind of final slide to cue these guys up, is on the left-hand side in that table, we have categories. Illinois is very siloed. We look at different systems that children come through, whether it's child welfare, mental health, juvenile justice, substance use, education. So they have these silos, and we don't in Illinois have somebody over those silos. What we're proposing on the right-hand side is really making decisions with system of care values. But the point I want to make is really quickly a shared population focus. That if we look at all kids, children, and families, and not just children with mental health needs, children in the juvenile justice system, we begin to look at systems of care that allow us as providers to look at how we help youth, no matter what system they're in. Because when we look at crossing across system, there are gaps that children and families fall through, and there also tends to be some duplication. And so on the bottom there, you see how we transform is it has to be at a policy level, at a management level, frontline service providers, and being able to look at a community level. So that's just a cue up to get Sam and Erica on board to tell you about some exciting things in Champaign County from the planning committee and some directions that we may go. So I'll take off the slides and let Sam take over.
I see him trying. There he is.
So, Leon and Lynn, is someone going to cue that set of slides that we sent?
You can share the screen and then that way you can move through the slides at the pace that you choose.
Okay, well, it's gonna take me a moment to dig those up. But what I will say is that
I can talk a minute if you want to pull those up, Sam.
yeah, that would be fine, Erica. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just introduce myself while he's doing that. My name is Erica Hughes. I work for the Illinois Department of Human Services, and I am the Redeploy Illinois Program Administrator. So I oversee all of the Redeploy Illinois programs across the state. We've almost completely saturated the state where we could be. We have programs that cover over half of the counties in Illinois. And in those counties that don't have redeploy programs that meet a certain criteria, we have redeploy funds to help those youth individually. So thank you, Lynn. That is who I am. Sam?
So Sam, if you find the slides, you can share, but I'll do it until you find them.
Okay, well, it would be easier for me if you just,
Okay, but I need to go lock the doors. So maybe we can get to a slide that can sit on for a while you talk.
This is fine.
Start here.
I think so. That's
So,
okay. Thanks, Sam.
yeah, Erica, do you want to take that slide?
Sure, I can take this slide. So as I was saying, this is a program that uses state general revenue funding to provide community-based alternatives for youth who would otherwise go to the Department of Juvenile Justice. So it's a very targeted population, those kids who are the highest need and involved in the juvenile justice system. They're almost always on probation. Because as you may know, youth tend to escalate in their crimes. And it does take a long time to commit an offense that's punishable by commitment. It is a very last resort, but is in my opinion, never a good resort. Research has taught us that prison's not good for kids, that they come out worse than when they went in. It's time away from their families, their communities, their schools, and they come out with a lot of problems that stick with them. So what the redeploy program does is take an approach to try to support the youth and the families so that they're in a position to succeed long term. Historically, when redeploy started in 2005, we had over 1,600 kids locked up in prison. Well, that number now is down to like under 150. We've done a really great job as a state keeping kids out of prison. However, that does not mean that there aren't youth who have a lot of needs that need to be addressed because they do have the potential to end up committed. So originally, our big goal was to reduce recidivism and keep youth from being committed. As time went on, we found that there are more beneficial ways to measure progress and success in the program. And that is to look beyond recidivism to see if the youth actually got better. Are they back in school? Are they on track to get their GED or high school diploma? Do they have aspirations for a career? Do they have interests that they're tapping into? Do they live in a safe, stable home? Are there food insecurities? Are there health issues and mental health issues that need to be addressed? Physical. All kinds of things that go into putting that youth and family in a position to succeed. So we work very collaboratively with probation, and typically there's a redeploy coordinator who may have some case managers, depending on how big the caseloads are. And that's one person who creates a case plan for the youth that complements what probation is doing, probation focusing on those criminogenic risks, redeploy taking a more positive youth development, holistic approach to serving the youth, and touching on some of those domains that Pat pointed out to us. We have redeploy money that pays for rent. We get the water turned back on. We get school clothes for the kids. We get new mattresses. There is a lot of work that goes into stabilizing that family before you can throw them into the intensive therapy that we want to be effective and impactful. So in a nutshell, it's kind of what redeploy is. Champaign is in the process of going through a planning grant. So Sam is trying to figure out, how do we get the kids from court into the program? What kind of needs do those youth have? What kind of social services and resources are available? And how can we build a redeploy program that effectively impacts the youth and families? And like Pat said, this is one way to sort of try to get through those silos that we have, because it really is a wrap approach that uses a team to help support and build that kid and that family up.
Okay, I'm gonna chime in here for a moment. What you see on your screen is a list of the names of the planning team that is involved with this planning grant initiative. I got started in this conversation over 2 years ago, investigating the possibility and the feasibility of creating a juvenile justice council in Champaign County. And a juvenile justice council is a body that is allowed by the statute that informs formal systems people on reducing rates of incarceration. And as we were hosting these conversations around that work, juvenile redeploy emerged as a possibility for doing that kind of coordination. I want to cite one thing that I learned over the past, actually this was fairly recently, this was within the last 6 months in this conversation. And that fact is that if you think about our highest needs kids that are on probation in Champaign County, there is not any regularly scheduled school-based meeting or planning for those youth. So if you think about kids that are students that are in, let's say, Central High School or Urbana High School that are on probation, while probation officers may meet regularly at the school to check up on students or may consult with school personnel around attendance and behavior, there is not the kind of staffing that you might expect in, let's say, a residential placement facility where people are meeting on a regular basis, developing goals for a student, meeting across systems or with different people or organizations or agencies or expertise that are involved with a student. And I found that fact to be incredible in a place like Champaign that has that describes itself as being so resource rich. And I'm not quite sure of why that is the case. So one of the elements of redeploy that I am quite interested in is this idea of redeploy as a collaborative practice in Champaign County. And I'm still searching for my slides as I speak. I'm sorry that I am having such a difficult time with that.
Is this the right page?
That page is good enough. So what we've been doing over the past couple of years is hosting conversations with a range of different kinds of stakeholders, including formal systems people like probation and court services. In fact, just this morning, I hosted a coffee here at Granite Center, and Shannon Siders joined us. I was very excited about that. We've also met with the new public defender and had conversations with Julia Reese. We sponsored a couple of juvenile justice forums at the University YMCA's Friday Forum a couple of months ago. We've begun meeting with and collaborating with partners from other counties, including Macon County and Peoria. And again, to me, it's sort of striking that that the level of possibility for collaboration. And I think I'm really looking forward to the possibility of JRI, Juvenile Redeploy Initiative, helping to facilitate that kind of local collaboration as well as regional collaboration. And so we received a planning grant from the state that has been facilitating some of this work. It's paying for some of my time. It's funded some visits to redeploy sites by other, some of the planning team members that you saw. And so I'm looking forward to getting into a sausage making room with a group of people and hammering out some of the details around how do we provide services to youth and families. How do we take advantage of what exists? Think about what doesn't exist. I think a huge area for us to explore, and I'll take a minute and give you an example of this, and then you can ask questions. But I think a huge area for us to explore is around advocacy and education around juvenile justice. This is my second surprising fact about juvenile justice in Champaign County. You know that we have a police training institute. That police training institute provides up to 16 weeks of training for police officers. I was very surprised to learn that less than 4 hours of that training for Police Training Institute is devoted to juvenile justice issues. And I think one of the areas of advocacy and development is to have law enforcement thinking about ways of increasing what it is that we know about juveniles and how we sort of incorporate that into the ways that we approach juveniles. Erica talked a little bit about redeploy. I've also learned that what the redeploy term means is to redeploy funding that would be used to incarcerate youth into other kinds of projects and approaches and interventions for you. Erica, did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. It is cost savings. You know, it costs on average over $160,000 a year to house a youth in the Department of Juvenile Justice. On the high end, you know, our sites are paying, you know, no more than $13,000, $14,000 a youth. And, you know, those are the kids who are getting the most intensive services. You know, and as you can see on the slide here, since the beginning of the program, you know, these are almost 5,000, and now it is up to 5,000. I need to update this slide. I think more than 5,000 youth have been diverted from the Department of Juvenile Justice, and we've saved the state over $158 million by doing that. We've also seen juvenile, facilities shut down during the time that redeploy has been around. You know, these are all good things, and these are all things that we hope will, you know, have a long-term impact on everybody who works and lives in the state of Illinois. You know, one thing that research has also told us is that you can serve youth in the community and still keep the community safe. You know, we have some youth who are committing some very serious offenses. You know, it's a very restorative approach where, you know, the youth learn the impact of the actions that they commit. We try to get them to understand. I say we, our programs try to get the youth to understand what it means to be a victim of crime. They are held accountable, but at the same time, we want to find opportunities to praise success. You know, if you're putting the goal of, you know, obtaining your GED or being on track to get your GED, And you haven't been in school in 2 years. You know, how feasible is that goal and how motivated are you to reach it? You know, it almost feels like you're setting me up to fail because you're putting the goal in place that there's no way I'm going to reach, right? So that's why we say on track to get, not you have to get, you know, because we want to take that kid who hasn't been in school in 2 years and get him enrolled. You know, awesome. You're enrolled now. Here's a $50 gift card. Let's take your family to Olive Garden and go celebrate. You know, now that the kid's in school, we're working with them. Now he's going regularly. There's another reward we could give. That's another way to build on that strength. You know, now that they're going regularly, their grades are starting to go up. And if you set these little sort of mini goals along the way, it provides an opportunity to praise success for that youth. And you would be surprised at how impactful and effective it is. It also is a way to get buy-in from the family because they start to see the program as a place of support, not as a place that's watching over them because they got in trouble. We had a youth on a basketball team doing really well in school. COVID hit, basketball went away, grades dropped. So we took $200 of redeploy money and put a basketball hoop in the kid's driveway. So guess what happened? That shifted the whole dynamic of the family and how they perceive the program. So this is the kind of thing, and I've been trying to work with Champaign County for years and years. And I think the one thing that I think they were struggling to understand was like Sam said, there are a lot of resources here, a lot of them.
Yes, Lynn?
There's some context, and it's probably not appropriate for this meeting, and I don't want to cut into your time, but I can share with you privately why Champaign County has not been involved in redeploy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very, very simple reason, but it's not appropriate for this meeting.
All right,
Okay.
well, I
I
would love to hear
I've
that.
worked with
I
them, so
I shared it with you before, Sam.
I kind of know,
Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of know. But I think now we're in a place where we can.
Things are
We
different, but let's start there.
Yeah, things are different. And I also want to, I know that Lynn is doing several jobs. And I do want to sort of point to this slide, this goal around decreasing juvenile incarceration. In the statute, the redeploy allowance requires that the county reduces incarceration by 25%. And that has been one of the challenges for counties to adopt a redeploy program. You can go on, Lynn, you can advance the next slide. But I want to underscore that the question of public safety and guarding the well-being of the larger community is a primary concern of redeploy initiatives. And as Erica may have said a little bit ago, that redeploy is very targeted. It works with those most challenging youth and not necessarily all of those most challenging youth. So I think part of our sausage making in Champaign County will be to hammer out that segment of the most challenging youth in our county that we are likely to have great success with a redeploy initiative. And I know Erica likes this matrix to describe sort of what's happening in juvenile justice in terms of this sort of deeper and broader understanding of youth development. Kids are more than the crime that they have committed, even if it is a heinous crime, and effectively responding to youth in the juvenile justice system requires that we know that and practice that. And so, Erica, do you want to talk about this matrix a bit?
Sure. One, there's redeploy is a double-edged sword in that, the planning process is very challenging. This is one of the very few grants that is pretty much like whatever you can find to address that domain, we are willing to fund. So as long as it can be justified in your application, and as long as the Redeploy Oversight Board is on board with what you're trying to do, and they're the ones, the Redeploy Illinois Oversight Board are the ones who developed this matrix. They approved it at their December 2020 board meeting. So we've been trying to implement this and sort of change our, shift our programs a little bit to fit this matrix over the last couple of years. So redeploy looks different in every site, and it looks different for every youth and family because it's not a cookie cutter program. So you have to figure out, how many of these kids have mental health issues that need to be dealt with, figure out what that percentage is, find several options for services for those youth, and get contracts in place. So the money goes to a county unit of government who then finds a menu of options. They've got a menu of subcontractors they give money to provide services and resources in each of these domains. And the redeploy board and staff, we feel that using this holistic approach to address these specific core areas, while working collaboratively with probation and the schools and anybody who's touching the youth, using a coordinator to do so that, not everybody is all over the place, where, a judge can talk to a coordinator and say, tell me about this kid, and they can tell you anything and everything about that youth. The ability to subcontract with not only agencies, but individuals, psychologists for psychological evaluations. We've got contracts with a statewide IEP specialist who comes in. We've got contracts with advocates, with legal advocates across the state. Equip for Equality has been doing some work for some of these redeploy sites. So there's a lot that the money will pay for, and which makes it very unique. And it's also why we built that planning process into the grant process. We want you to try to figure this out before we start throwing a bunch of money at you. The program dollar amounts are going up. We just gave Cook County $5.8 million to start redeploy up in 4 of their calendars in Chicago. They're anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million.
Thanks, Erica. And I know I know we want to leave some room for questions and comments. And
I'm done.
And I remembered something that a psychology professor told me. He said, we have these amazing brains. They could start working even before we're born, and they don't stop until you speak in public. And apparently computers do the same thing. So I apologize for the technical difficulties, and thank you so much, Lynn, for stepping in and helping with that. But we'd be willing to answer any questions, and also just to extend an invitation, if you're interested in redeploy, I'd love to talk with you and spend some time with you and figure out how to incorporate what you know about youth and mental health in our community into our planning and our thinking. So thank you all very much.
I would highly recommend that. It would be fantastic if you could get a volunteer from this group to provide that input.
I have a question. When you put up the slide about the planning committee, I immediately wondered why there wasn't anybody from the schools, and then Sam mentioned that. And so I was just wondering if you have a way of doing that, at what level would it come from the school counselors, from the superintendent's office? I just didn't know if there's a dedicated portal, that you can go to or not.
Well, I'd like to try to answer that quickly. One of my great heartbreaks this year was beginning some work with one of the districts that was specifically focused around addressing violence and the potential for violence in their most at-risk students. And we started at the end of the last school year, and the district and the high school began convening a group of both school and community personnel. I was very excited about this work, and in fact, so excited about the work that I think it is a model for school-based practice for redeploy. Weekly meeting of folks at the school and interested community folks, a range of community folks, thinking about, talking about, planning around that most high-risk group of youth. But if you've been in Champaign County for longer than 25 minutes, you know that we have challenges collaborating in our own offices, in our own agencies, across agencies. And so, so that initiative ran into a roadblock. It's growing pains, but there were in fact a great deal of enthusiasm around engaging with the school. It was in this school meeting where I learned that probation was not meeting regularly with school personnel. Probation obviously goes to school, checks up on kids, works collaboratively with schools. But there are if you think about children and the life of children sort of being on this wave, there are these places in the wave where the communication absolutely stops. I'll stop there.
Could I just share a comment? And I'm sorry to
Yeah.
bust in when there are board members with questions, but
No, I love for the busting in. Thank you. That's my.
well, there are
that's
tables that
improvisation.
we've been involved with for years and years and years and years with all the stakeholders that you want, except the schools.
Yeah.
And I've even gotten, honest feedback from people working in the school district about why they're not there. So, but, it's like, we could talk about that offline as well, but when you're talking about this kind of project or a juvenile justice coordinating council, there are groups that already have everybody except the schools. So if there's some magic that you can perform to entice the schools into one of those groups, I feel like Champaign County is much more ready to collaborate than it looks, because you're looking at it from them.
Right.
They just need some kind of enticement.
We might be able to do that, because that's how we've gotten probation excited. Is, these are the kids you're struggling with the most. Let us do the heavy lifting. You're the, you work for the schools. Let our redeploy case coordinators sit in on those IEP meetings, because that coordinator is the one who gets, the online additional help. That the coordinator is the one who finds the tutor. The redeploy coordinator is the one who makes sure the kid has a hotspot and can connect to the internet. Gives the kid a ride anywhere they need to go. That's what that coordinator does. And if we can maybe, again, I'm sorry. I also live here, so I sometimes have to be careful. Another good thing is that this is all a non-competitive process. And if you want the redeploy money, you will get the redeploy money. We have enough money in the redeploy budget, to fund any place that wants to have a program. So that means I can help you do this because it's non-competitive. But I think that's one way to get the buy-in, is tell the schools and ask them, how can we help you with these kids? Because I think from what I hear from the school perspective is, you're asking us to fix the family, to fix the community, to fix the systems that touch the kid outside of school. And that's just too much for the school. And I think that's the kind of pressure they're feeling. So we need to convey the message, we got money to pay for somebody to do that for you. And hopefully in the long run, the teachers benefit, the families benefit, most importantly, the youth is on a positive track. So I'll stop.
Thank you.
I did have a question. I was wondering, what if, say, after the family or the child says they want to participate in redeploy, but then you say, okay, well, you have to go see your pediatrician or your psychiatrist and stay on your medication. Is there a court order that mandates that they do what the psychiatrist says or the pediatrician says? 'Cause if
No,
they-
it's not to that level. No, it's the kind of thing where it's more case, basically in most of our areas, the courts are like, just do what probation says. And probation is like, let redeploy help you. A violation in redeploy, we don't have violations in redeploy. We have a reanalysis of the case plan. It's not all on the youth to do all of this. We have to make sure that the supports and the resources are in place so that the youth doesn't have appointments that are double booked and isn't supposed to be someplace where they can't be because it overlaps with an after school activity or they don't have a reliable vehicle.
What if they have a mental health disorder and the family is reluctant to seek treatment?
So I think,
That's where we need your input.
yeah, and I think that, youth in many families are reluctant or resistant clients, and that challenge exists in schools, in juvenile justice system, even in folks sitting in therapy offices right now. I don't want to be here, and I'll show up, but I'm not talking. And I think that the advantages of having a person court ordered to therapy have to be weighed against the disadvantages of having a person court ordered to therapy. I think an important other way of thinking about possibility in terms of juvenile justice is, what if the psychiatrist was court ordered to deliver positive results from youth and families? What if we were court ordered to deliver positive results? How might our approaches, our practice, our methods change with youth and with families? And can an initiative like Redeploy contribute to another kind of justice, distributive justice, where the availability of mental health supports are more readily accessible to children and families that are culturally consonant, that are culturally competent, that are not traditional. So I think there are lots of challenges from that problem of, what do you do with somebody that has an identifiable problem and they won't seek treatment or services, and it's causing them and the community difficulty. And I believe that and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this. I don't believe that the formal justice systems can effectively manage that question on their own. I don't believe that we can specifically order people to get treatment and that is enough. I also don't think it is the case that we can only hope that people will choose treatment sort of voluntarily. So I think part of Redeploy's work, part of the value of thinking about working with schools, thinking about collaboration, a network focused, a public health focused approach to these kinds of questions, is that maybe mental health is delivered in some other ways. Maybe a group of kids take a field trip with someone who has the skill and qualities to develop relationships with that group of children. And maybe that's one way that we deliver necessary mental health services. Maybe the idea of the more sort of, 50-minute hour with a psychotherapist is good for many people, but there may be other ways, and we may in fact have to develop those other ways of working with some of our challenging youth and families. And I don't necessarily, and I think that there may be some practices and some models around the country that we can look at and that we can learn from. But I do think that that is a perennial issue. I mean, we can look at DUIs in the court system and in the same way. But I think it's a really important question. I think it's a question that we it's really important for us to struggle with as a community, rather than to expect either mental health professionals are going to figure it out, or the judicial folks are going to figure it out, or the police are going to figure it out. Now we have police working much more closely with social workers in recognition that it's not a policing issue. It's not necessarily a justice issue. So I think that is a tough nut to crack and to resolve and understand.
One quick thing, and then I think Sarah has a question. What we have found historically in Redeploy, and this is one reason why the matrix looks like it does, is we were paying for all these extensive therapies for mental health, and we weren't getting the results that we wanted to see. And it was because we hadn't addressed some of those underlying issues that were stressing the family out. You know, it's hard to do well in therapy when you don't know how you're going to feed your kids next week, you know, when you don't have any water running in the house. So that's why we put that safety and the health and wellness domains in there, because there's some work to be done before you can start throwing these intensive therapies at them. And part of that is, you know, we hire parental engagement specialists whose sole purpose is to support the parents, you know, get them connected to services, get them to better understand the benefits of therapy. And eventually, a lot of those families get to a point where they're like, okay, we feel like we're ready for therapy. And there's all kinds of therapy that Redeploy will pay for. It's whatever is the best fit for that youth and their family, or their caretaker, their grandma, we have a kid who's living with his ex-girlfriend's grandpa who's coming. You know, it's whoever we can find to support that youth. Like, seriously, his ex-girlfriend's grandpa is going to therapy with him. We found an adult that cares for that youth, has a tremendous impact. Sarah, I think you had a question.
Thank you, everybody. I am new to the meetings. I work for Immigration Project here in Champaign, and I had a quick question, and then maybe I'll link up with an individual in the program for Redeploy Illinois. I'll try to keep this vague. We're working with a minor who came to this country as an unaccompanied minor, meaning they did it themselves without a parent or guardian. And I don't, we won't get into the circumstances, but he is currently detained. And now getting processed through the immigration system. It's not my case, it's my colleague's case, but I wonder if an individual who may not have status in this country, who is detained somewhere in Champaign, has access. We're trying to find out if he could get access to some type of talk therapy, in addition to other services that Immigration Project and the institution where he stays is providing.
Yes, you would think, I mean, the CCBYS program, Pat, is this something that, you know, the CCBYS program, don't you? Yeah, they try to connect some of these kids. I'm wondering if that might not be a path.
CCB, sorry.
It was CCBYS. Is it Cunningham's? Are you guys?
No, it's CYFS.
Okay.
Sarah, I'll put my number in the chat for you. You can call me.
Thank you. I don't want to take more of your time on an individual case, but I wanted to try to link up to Deploy Illinois because it sounds like an amazing program.
Not ask me, I'm the one in charge of it.
Thank you.
This is more of a comment than a question per se. With this program, it's more about the identified client. What about, since I've worked in the schools for a while, not all the kids have been identified by the juvenile justice program, but how do we really prevent them for getting into or being on probation for some minor infraction.
Yeah.
Do you
Right, so this-
have mechanisms to work in prevention before
So-
they even get into the program?
So this will probably get me in trouble as
Oh,
well.
go ahead, Jim. Well,
And
I'll join you.
I didn't want to respond to the previous question because my answer is likely to be a tad esoteric, right? But if you think about what our response to COVID-19 and the pandemic has been, and the public health approach that we've taken, if I'm the identified patient with COVID-19, part of what we do is to assess the risk to the rest of you all, and your risk levels may be different. Your risk levels may be different because your exposure level is different. Your risk levels may be different because your vulnerabilities are different. And so there's a whole range of therapies and interventions and responses based on our risk levels. And we initiate all of those interventions and all of those therapies because we know that even though I may be the identified patient that's infected, we know that how the virus works. The same thing is true for how violence works in our communities. And the same thing is true for the vulnerability of the young man that was just discussed. There are ways to work with that young man without ever meeting him. There are ways to advise the folks that work within the system that he is in. There are ways to provide resources to his network that can also have a positive impact on that young man. One of the things that I'm really very interested in, Joe, is how do we engage with youth serving centers in this approach? The Boys and Girls Club, local schools. There are 2 kids on probation in the 9th grade at Central High School. How do we do work with the 9th graders at Central High School that takes advantage of what it is that we know? That if people are embedded within a network, that network can make them more or less vulnerable to mental health issues, physical health issues, juvenile justice issues. If we were talking about COVID, we wouldn't just pluck a kid out of the 9th grade and send them home. We'd have all kinds of precautionary methods in the school that are there to add a measure of safety, even though there may be only one identified infected child. And so I think that kind of public health understanding of juvenile justice issues, again, my 2 cents, has to inform the work that we do in Champaign County.
And in some of those places where we've had redeploy for a long time, we're seeing a generational impact. You know, there are fewer kids who visit relatives in prison. There are fewer kids, whose younger siblings get involved. We've had parents come back to the program and say, even though my older son didn't successfully complete redeploy, my younger kids are in a great place. And so anecdotally, we've gotten some feedback around how, when you address the issues that are with the family, you have that potential. And a lot of times they just need a little bit of support. And we'll support you after they leave the program. We've got a youth who successfully completed the program, got a job, got an apartment, 19 years old, his girlfriend is pregnant, came back to redeploy. How can I be a good parent? Help me, so we're connecting that kid. Well, years after he graduated from redeploy, he came back. And now redeploy's not paying for it, but they've got him in the young parenting program at the agency. So, we're seeing some of that long-term stuff.
And I also want to say that we are involved in thinking about how or whether a redeploy initiative can serve Champaign County. And then the second question is, what would a useful, meaningful redeploy initiative in Champaign County look like? So we've been talking about this with lots of people for a couple of years, but I think the ultimate decision of how that lands in Champaign County has not yet been resolved. And I think we do that by wrestling with these questions. Do we want to create something that works with that population of youth that are mandated for mental health services, that are resistant to mental health services? Do we want to frame something around that population? That might be the need. Or do we want to frame something that might be as primary prevention focused as it is intervention focused, right? And so I think this is where we are and getting very close to sort of wanting to hammer that out.
It's got to be soon, Sam.
I know.
You know, the board wants, the board wants this redeploy, plan. They're anxious to get money into this community to start serving kids. Another nice thing is, it's a plan in the first, I don't know, it takes time to figure out what your program is going to look like. It doesn't have to be set in stone. This is exactly what we're going to do. We can make changes to program plans. We can make changes to budgets. We have programs that have been around since 2005 that change every year because it's all based on what the current population needs. So, if we can just hammer out some of these things and get them down on paper so that you can get more than the $25,000 planning grant to actually try to start to implement this, that would be ideal. I mean, the board wants you guys to get going July 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we need to wrap this up. I do want to thank you, not just for the presentation, but for that great news, because the Mental Health Board has put a lot of money into this population over the years and was part of a system of care cooperative agreement for 6 years plus sustainability efforts since then, and kind of all on our own. And I think it will work better with, an infusion of money from the state and guidance from the state and somehow bringing all the right players to the table. So I really appreciate the work y'all have been doing toward this. I know it's not easy, and thank you so much for the presentation this evening. This is really important stuff.
And thank you all. And Leon and Lynn and Joe have my contact information and Erica's contact information. I would love to talk with any of you anytime about this work.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank you all.
So
It's time for us to leave.
You guys can stick around for the rest of the meeting if you like. Now on to something a little less exciting, the agency audit report delays. I don't know if Lynn, if you want to talk about this.
So it's like sort of disappointing that we're still having this problem, but I've gotten some honest feedback from other government officials that our chief deputy auditor is a CPA, and he has affirmed that this really is a large problem, that he gets calls even from CPA firms asking if he would do some work for them on contract to help them get the audits done. He's also had some experience where any organization who had a delayed audit last year and got an extension, whether from the state or the feds on that audit deadline, actually needs an extension this year too, because the CPA firm can't even start the work until the earlier audit is completed. So I am not surprised, even though I'm sorry to present you with, very similar position to the one we were in last year at this time, but it is not a surprise. And I think there are the same factors. So there's no news, but what we have are, we're still waiting for a few audits that I believe the agencies were quite confident would be delivered in time for payments to go out for January and February together. But there are two where the CPA firm specifically said, I know I'm making this late, So for this one, this is Community Service Center of Northern Champaign County. I know I'm making this late, so the CPA is affirming that an extension for this agency so that we could allow them to be paid would be helpful, and that he's taking responsibility for the second one, which is GROW, that there are more complicated causes for the delay, but I think enough of them are still safely within that category that we've been concerned about, delays that come from the CPA firm. So we have those two who have requested that, here's the first one, requested that we approve release of payments, and if the audit continues to be late, but then we get all the way up to March and we would have to do something else, because if we don't have an audit by March, the contract is canceled. So I'm not asking you for that. I'm just asking for those two agencies that we go ahead and release their payments. And then if their audit still hasn't gotten here by the end of March, we'll have a different situation. So that's the first question. And then then the second question is, if we get similar evidence for somebody else, should we also release the payments? This is more, like this board can decide to do whatever you want to. You can make any exception to the rules that you choose. So I was just trying to sort of divide the situation up into the first one, where we have some evidence and the CPA firm is taking responsibility for the delay. Second one, where that could still happen. And then the third one has to do with our staff, that we are also facing the big grind, which starts on February 10, when all the applications are submitted. And the process for our staff review of applications and your process for review and discussion of applications really does deserve full attention. So I have been a little uncomfortable in the last couple of years with late applications that we have to review very quickly. And then in this situation, if there are agencies, even if they get their application done on time, we're still going to be waiting to know if they're eligible for funding per the audit. That was a complication that started to pop up last year. When we reviewed some applications, they looked great. We presented you recommendations that were really positive to support funding those proposals. You agreed, and we were all ready to go into contracts. And then we got the late audits, and we found a lot of problems that if you had known during the review process, you might not have said, let's fund this. So I would like to offer a new question, which is, delay our processes until we know if an agency is eligible. And we could rush once we know, but I feel like we got into some pretty difficult territory, ended up spending quite a bit of staff time on problems that we couldn't solve, and lost one contract. That, I don't know, that's really the worst case, is losing the opportunity to provide services to people. So anyway, I'm really talking a lot, I'm sorry.
I had a question. If we do approve the third motion, the agencies that have their audit already done, you guys are already going to start reviewing the contract application, correct? Okay. Say it does take a while for the CPA firms to audit a bunch of agencies, and we have two different groups, like some that are done around February, March, and then others that have already been done and we already have their contract application and they're along the normal time frame. Would we likely then end up with 2 rounds of application reviews for funding and 2 different times that we're funding agencies, you think?
I mean, it could be really complicated. It could be that we review things as possible, but just leave big holes in the analysis. And then when we get to the point in May where we have some recommendations to you all, we could have some of those be paused, like a recommendation to wait. So yes, it could get really hairy to split up the process and have different stages for different applications. So this might not be a perfect solution, but I'm just concerned that we don't know enough about real eligibility, financial standing, and whether an agency really is in a position to perform the services until we see the audits.
I mean, from my perspective, I don't know what other board members think, but I think this year might be a good way for agencies to kind of say to themselves and realize, okay, well, we really need to get these audits, otherwise we're not going to be the first funded. There may be less money than for those agencies to get from the pool of funding for if in the future there's there's less money than there are agencies at requesting for funding. Because this seems to be an ongoing problem. Obviously, not all of it is agency issues. It's obviously it's the amount of CPAs out there and the amount of money that they have to pay the CPA firms to get the audits done is obviously another issue, because CPA firms have been raising their prices to get more employees to be able to do these audits. But at the same time, my perspective would be more towards making sure that these contracts aren't going to fall through and making sure that we do have good audits. So we're not just funding something and then going back, because I feel like that this last year or so, I feel like we've had several issues come up and it's been kind of frustrating, because it would be nice to have known that those were issues. And then, then obviously, if we had more agencies requesting funding, it would be nice then to delegate that money to those other agencies. I don't think we had other agencies that requesting more money than we were able to give out. So I don't think it was a problem last year, but I don't want to run into that situation where we have money that we're not giving to an agency because we're giving it to a firm or giving it to an agency that doesn't have an audit that we would end up approving. So I would be in favor of the motion for the third motion, but just with the understanding that I want to make sure that the audits are going to be reviewed the same way that the first set of audits are reviewed by the staff and not rushed, so that we make sure we're making the right decision.
So I agree. I think that to an extent we have to know who's eligible before we can approve things. Again, I agree. Last year, I think there was a lot of staff review that went on, and then we were like, oh crud, they're missing stuff. And the harsh reality that I hate about all this is it's almost always not the agency's fault. And I don't know what we can do to help with the situation that we haven't already done. But I do think that if you've got your stuff in, that has to be the first ones, we review. And I don't know how we help fix this situation, but.
Well, that's interesting. That's maybe just a slightly different approach. Like if all your stuff is in, we review those first, but that doesn't necessarily mean we're delayed in reviewing anything else. We could just hold off on this third motion until next month when we see how many applications we actually have. Like if you'd rather wait and do that, it's really only the first one that I'm concerned about, that because there are two agencies with audits delayed due to circumstances mostly beyond their control. And we can't.
I do appreciate the two that have had CPAs send in saying, hey, it is on us. And I think going forward, if people don't have their audits in, then we need a letter from your CPA. So.
Well, is this ever going to be fixed? Is this about there not being enough CPAs in Champaign County, or were we blaming it on COVID for a while? I mean, I don't want this to keep coming back, so I want a little more information on, why it's happening.
I think it's like the price of eggs. Like this is, you used to have a statistic from us regarding every proposal, which was the percentage of health benefits or the percentage of fringe benefits against salaries, and that became a meaningless statistic because health insurance costs keep rising as they like. And that's the situation we're finding ourselves in with accounting firms. Like, the rules that you have right now allow for anyone licensed in Illinois. So a lot of agencies have sought a CPA firm outside of Champaign County, which is just fine. I don't think that it slows down the work, and they might be able to find better cost. But I think this is just, it's, you know, the great resignation hit that field. I wasn't expecting that at all.
Okay. Okay, well,
So I don't know. I can't predict.
yeah, okay.
And Elaine, I think maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, folks, I think a couple meetings ago, we talked about how agents or CPAs were going to be raising their prices. And I believe we had an agency that said, you know, they want to charge us almost $10,000 for an audit when we're only asking you for $15,000 for our program. And so I'm afraid we're going to run up against that too. Are people going to say, well, I'm not spending $10,000 to only gain $5,000? And that's not good. That's not helping our kids, our adults, our seniors. I mean, we gotta stop the madness, lower the eggs.
But they're not required to do an audit unless they have total agency revenue of greater than $300,000. And then the next range is between 30,000 and 300,000. They can do a review. Both of that's also, you know, costly. And then under 30,000, they only have to do a compilation, which is, it also costs money. But if you really only have $15,000, you're not going to be spending 10,000.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
I noticed though that both of the letters for the two agencies where the CPAs wrote it and explains their delays in the process. In both letters, it was mentioned that they were increasing their fees in order to hire additional staff. So just noting that.
So before we move for motions, I just want to see what people's thoughts are. Do you feel like you guys want to approve the first two motions to allow the people that have submitted or demonstrated that the deadline was missed because of the independent CPA firm, and then the ones subsequent to this action? So if other agencies also submit a letter, that they also can still get their release of the January, February, and March payments, or do you guys feel differently about approving those two?
I'm leaning towards approving both, although I do have a question for you, Lynn, on the second one. For the ones I guess the question is, how much are we going to be putting on Lynn and the staff to get those letters from the agencies, or is it more, is it going to be more just it's on them to get those letters and provide that proof?
Well, I would hope if they want the funding,
exactly,
to them that they would give us the letter. I hope, I feel like you guys could always just email all those agencies that haven't sent and say, hey, if you want the funding release, you need to send us an email.
Well, Mr. Bryson has been communicating with the agencies. There's only one that I think has not communicated at all. And I'm wondering if there's something worse going on, like they don't exist anymore. I don't know why he hasn't heard back at all, but he has been talking to all, and some, you know, they have different reasons for the lateness. And then there are some who have total confidence that it's coming any day now. And those are the ones that I'd like to protect by having the second motion. Like, if they think it's going to get done and the CPA is delaying it and just not saying that yet, and it happens, you know, after today, and we get a letter from the CPA saying, oh yeah, I delayed it, I think that would be fair to those organizations. I mean, it's nice that folks have confidence in the people there and, you know, that they've engaged for this work, but I don't. So,
And then the third motion is basically just to give the board and the staff more time to approve and review the contracts that come in after February 10th. So I don't have a problem approving that one either, because it doesn't mean that we're gonna review them all at this. We're not gonna approve the contracts or review them all at the same time. It just means, you know, we're giving more time to review them. So I'm fine approving all three, but if other board members have other thoughts, I'm happy to hear it. Is there any more questions or discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll move for the first motion. So I'll move to approve the release of January, February, and March payments if needed for those agencies which have not submitted an approved audit or review at this time, but have demonstrated that the deadline was missed due to delays encountered by the independent CPA firm they had engaged in a timely manner.
I will
I'll
second
second
that.
that. You both did.
All right, yeah, can I get a roll call, please?
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandal,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Omosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right, seeing that is approved. Do we have someone that wants to move the second motion?
All right, I will move to approve the release of January, February, and March payments if needed for those agencies which have not submitted an approved audit or review at this time, but demonstrate subsequent to this action that the deadline was missed due to delays encountered by the independent CPA firm they had engaged in a timely manner.
This is Jen Straub. I can second that.
All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Omosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandal,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right, that has been approved. Now we're gonna move on to the third motion. Does someone want to move for the third motion? All right, I'll
Can I
move.
ask a question? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yep.
So I know it currently says remains outstanding as of February 10th, 2023. Do we need to actually preface how far we're willing to wait to review these?
I mean, I would leave it vague. This way the staff has their own timeline, depending on how late they come in and how messy or clean they are.
And that's completely fine. So I will present the motion then. Motion to approve additional time for the board and staff review, approval and subsequent PY 2024 contracting with the applicant whose audit or review remains outstanding as of February 10th, 2023.
I'll second the motion. All right, can we get a roll call, please?
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Omosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandal,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right, now we're going on to old business. We have the RFP 2022 Evaluation Committee recommendations.
so, sorry, I'm going too fast. So here's background. It's just when things happen and where you can find the info about it, the update. So Kim Bowdry is here. I think she's still here. She was the lead of the RFP evaluation committee and did all the follow-up communication with the applicant. So she may be able to answer questions. But I want to just share with you something happened this morning at the DD board meeting. A couple aspects of it are really important to me. I do not, once you all make a motion and second it, it's not really appropriate for anybody but the board to talk unless you call on them to talk. So I do not want to interrupt you. So I want to tell you this before you make the motion. But the evaluation committee made 2 recommendations, which we put here verbatim. Well, or the first one is verbatim, and then the second one brings in like total cost and the time frame, which was stuff I knew. So I did help a little bit there. The DD board this morning approved the second motion as written, but the first motion, they had a very robust discussion about the clause here, the caveat that was included. And it was lovely because the caveat comes from a place of the evaluation team understanding the predicament that many agencies are in and trying to be sensitive to that, which, you know, I think both boards share that sensitivity. So that's really cool. But then they also were saying, like, you know, this came up because, you know, the respondent, the Family Resiliency Center, does address that. And so to put this in to the motion to add a caveat to the contract was maybe a little too much. And it is one of the things that Kim followed up with the respondent on. So I just wanted to let you know what they approved this morning is this motion, but without that clause. So, and this is one of the side effects of not doing this through a joint special meeting. Joint special meeting is hard on everybody, but it's great because the decision is done together and the discussion is done together. But when we split it and go back and forth between the boards, it can take a little while. So I'm not scared of that, but I just wanted y'all to know what happened. So anyway, have I said enough about that, do you think?
So if we wanted to approve the same motion, we would just remove that whole caveat section. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm. And then it's a little bit hollow, but it's okay to, you know, approve the proposal essentially twice. There's no harm in that. But I mean, it's an interesting dilemma. I think it was, you know, people really know about person-centeredness and about respect for participants. And so I don't know, maybe this was very poorly worded or something. I apologize if that's the case, but I think I've said enough, hopefully.
Are there any questions or thoughts from board members?
Well, I've been going back and forth on that, and Lynn knows, and I've been trying to revise that caveat, but I think it's kind of judgmental and aggressive for all kind. Plus, it's kind of top down for us to step in, and so I and basically say to the Family Resilience Center, we're watching you, and to take agency away from the agencies who can also say, this is what we can do of the things that you're suggesting. And I think this all came up because the proposal is elegant and very detailed, but it does look like it would be possible to, as many of you probably have noticed when you read it, it would be possible to overburden, especially a small agency. And I, in fact, said to Lynn, are they going to have to hire other staff, you know? And then there would be mission drift toward keeping statistics instead of putting your time with the mission, you know, with your consumers. So but you know, going round and round and round, I really would be very comfortable with taking that entire clause out and let agencies and the Family Resilience Center each, you know, situation work itself out, what they need to take from the training they will get, and not have us intervene and try to control it. Period.
I would like to chime in and agree with what you just said, Elaine. And I was on the committee to review this evaluation, but unfortunately could not be present at the discussion about it. I ended up due to a medical issue, I had to communicate some of my thoughts via email. But one thing that stuck out to me about the proposal is the sort of research methodology and framework that the research team is coming from is from a participatory methods, which really centers the research subject, which is, you know, the agencies sort of in the process, and really focusing on their specific needs. You know, I could think of other research methodologies that might be used in this context that maybe would be more of a top-down approach, but the way that sort of the framework that's being used really is about like building momentum and capacity sort of within these agencies, and really focusing on like, what are these agencies telling us they need from us as a research team? In my opinion and knowledge of different research methodologies. So I feel comfortable not including the caveat because I think it's inherent in in the methodology that they're using.
Okay, yeah.
Lynn, I did have a question. What did the DDB board do for these two motions? Did they approve both of them, or did they just discard the first one? What they?
No, they did it, but just took that clause out. I mean, I'm sorry that I have not done justice to their conversation. It was a really good conversation. And I think, you know, after discarding the clause, I don't think any of us noticed that it's redundant to the other motion, but there's nothing wrong with approving a lot. And I also just a suggestion, if the support is underutilized because of agency capacity, because it is all for the sake of building capacity of agencies. So if it doesn't work, and the support is underutilized, our contracts require money to be returned to us. So the second motion where you're seeing the amount of money, that's a maximum amount. So.
Is there any further discussion or questions? All right. Seeing none, I will move to approve the Family Resiliency Center RFP 2022-010 response as proposed, pending similar approval by the CCDDB board, striking out with the caveat that the selection of targeted programs include assurance that agencies chosen for participation will not be overburdened and will benefit from the process.
I second that motion.
All right, can we have a roll call, please?
Jane Sprandal,
Yes.
Yes. Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Omosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim,
Yes. All right. Seeing that's approved, do we have someone for the second motion?
Motion to authorize the executive director to enter into a 24-month contract with the Family Resiliency Center for the support as proposed, with a start date of May 1st, 2023 and an end date of April 30, 2025, and a total cost of $253,768 pending similar approval by the CCDDB.
I will second the motion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Joe Almosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
Molly McClay,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right, seeing that's approved, we'll go on to page 25, which is the revised CCDDB and CCMHB budgets for 2023.
Finally, some really, really good news among my boring memos. The really good news is that there are a bunch of attachments here, but the attachment page 34 and 35 is a note that in December, the county found additional money for each of the mental health board and DD board along with other funds. So part of this decision here is just for you to approve increased revenues and expenses, but the whole increase in the expenses, we have worked it into what's allocated to agencies for services. That's the contributions and grants line. Then the other part of this, which is maybe boring, but kind of cool, is that over the last year, the chief deputy auditor and the chief finance deputy of the county have been working on the expense classifications to bring them more closely in line with the government standards. So that's good. It's been a little bit chaotic for Chris Wilson and me to rearrange the expenditures that you've already approved into the correct category classifications, but we did it. It might not be perfect, but at this stage, we thought it would be good for you all to see what we think is going to happen and where things will be expended. Still a budget, so it's never perfect, but you know, it was really mostly because of the good news, and then this bad news is described in we actually included the new chart of accounts so that you can see the new definitions in case you're really interested. But the first set of attachments is the usual presentation for your use of the budget lines. So anyway, I thought this was kind of good, all kind of good. Maybe I'm wrong.
If there's no other conversation, I will make a motion. I make a motion to approve the changes to the attached 2023 CCMHB budget with anticipated revenues and expenditures of $6,387,738.
I will second the motion. Can we have a roll call, please?
Molly McClay,
Yes.
Joe Almosagie,
Yes.
Elaine Palencia,
Yes.
Jen Straub,
Yes.
Jane Sprandel,
Yes.
Matt Hausman,
Yes.
Alexa McCoy,
Yes.
John Paul Joachim.
Yes. All right. So the next thing on the agenda is the MHB and DDB schedules and timelines. And then I guess all right.
I do. Dr. Joachim, you're muted. Sorry.
Just looking for the next meeting date, but you already have it up.
So, well, this is, I have two questions for you. The first question is, there's a special joint meeting scheduled for February 15th at this same time. you don't need it now. The only topic we were anticipating was working on the RFP recommendations. But that evaluation committee got done in record time. So you don't need that meeting, and we can cancel it if you choose. So then your next regular meeting would be February 22nd. So that's one question.
Yeah, I mean, I would cancel it. Less meetings is always nice, especially if there's nothing extra that we need to discuss. So,
True story.
So the second question is much harder, and one that it will take us time to answer. We started down this road before, while we were waiting for to see if the governor was going to extend the disaster proclamation, which allows us to have public meetings virtually with me in the room. It happened, but it wasn't posted. So I have to wait until the earliest I would know is February 6th, whether you can do the February 22nd meeting remotely or if it will be in person. In the meanwhile, I've learned how to do the hybrid. So I'm a little bit more, I'm not confident, but I'm a little happy that we can do a hybrid meeting, but board members have to be present in person if the disaster proclamation stops. So this is for you all to think about whether you can come at this time. And if not, then are there times that are better, or is it just going to be very difficult to participate generally? So that's something y'all can think about and get back to me on. But I guess the question is, the question is kind of like, maybe, would you mind thinking about it and getting back to me on it?
do you want us just to email you or individually, or okay?
And some already have. But yeah, it's just, at some point we will not have this option unless there is legislation, which I haven't seen anything yet. There are 2,000 bills already introduced, but I don't know if any of them address making these revisions permanent. It's desirable to some, but it's not the law yet. So.
All right. So next item is agency input. Any agency may participate, just limit your comments to 5 minutes. All right, seeing no agencies, we'll have the CCDDB board input. If there's anyone here from the DDB board, no? All right, so we'll go on to staff reports. I did have one question. I guess I don't know if Leon's here. I didn't see, but is in his report it seemed like the juvenile redeploy program was discussing things with Cunningham Children's. Is that true, or what would they be involved in some way?
Hi. Yes, I think Pat was just on the call earlier speaking about the redeploy efforts. So I do believe that they will be part of that.
Yeah.
I can update you. I just couldn't find my mute button. So real briefly, I'm meeting with Champaign schools on Monday. We've been trying to get a meeting since September. That we haven't been able to get into that school. We've been in Rantoul School, high school now. And so that was Hope Springs and FST. So yes, I've had some conversations with Sam about even a team that might be able to go in and meet with some of the youth in the schools. That's a problem right now, still with COVID. They haven't really released it, all the building principals. So I'm meeting with Orlando Thomas and several of the other leadership members at Champaign to see if we can begin to look at how we can access. We've had one of the FST members, our team members, one of our bachelor's level folks, has done a fair amount in the school before COVID, sitting at IEPs, working with the parents, and that's really one of the better venues for us. So that is one thing Sam and I talked about, some of the youth that he mentioned that don't have anybody to talk with or working with the probation office. And now that there's a new director, that's a piece from a specific to the FST program.
Awesome. Thanks. Were there any other questions or comments about the staff reports? All right, seeing none, any board to board reports?
I did have one for this, John. So last month, I actually represented the board. There was the retreat Lynn had sent out to everyone about the Campus Community Compact to Accelerate Social Justice. Had a this is a broader effort of trying to connect university efforts with community leaders. There's 6 kind of subsections that they're looking at. One of them being community health, wellness, and resilience. And that was what this one was about. There'd already been some meetings going on from the planning committee. I think they've been, Lynn, they were meeting for like a year, I believe, right? And this is how long they've been. So this was kind of the first one where they brought in a lot more of the community stakeholders. It was mostly a retreat, kind of get to know people and talk a little bit about what the thoughts are. No really big takeaways yet. One of the only big takeaway was that they wanted to get some more of that community input before they start planning any real process and stuff like that. That was the big one. We did talk about some of the stuff. One interesting thing from the mental health perspective that came up in conversation, and this was just conversation, nothing's solidified or anything, but one concern was since it was based on equity of health and stuff like that, one of the big concerns was mental health concerns and supports for women of color. And they made the comment that they felt like there was a lot more of that available for the campus community and students. And one thing was that there was a way to kind of work out something where the university has volunteer opportunities, and if they could do that to help to serve the greater community. So that's just something that was brought up as a mental health potential aspect in one of our small group conversations. I haven't seen anything since that, Lynn. I don't know if you've received anything in the last month and a half since that retreat. So, okay, it doesn't seem like there was anything that's come out since then, but I just want to let the board know that that's going to be an ongoing thing in the next few months. As I said, it's going to be a really broad, this is a really big effort across many different realms.
And then I also attended, I think it was November's Promise Healthcare meeting. And it was pretty broad, basically just talked about how they were trying to expand their services, but nothing really pertinent to the mental health board meeting. But it seemed like they were on the right track. It seemed like things were going well financially and based on their plans. All right, any board announcements? Sorry, any board announcements? All right, seeing none, I guess I'll move to adjourn.
You know
sorry.
what? I forgot y'all have a study session next week. And that's remote. That's a Zoom study session. I'm so sorry.
Oh wait, January 25th, right?
Yeah. That's going to be fun. I think that'll be a really great discussion. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully I'll see you all then.
All right, thanks, Lynn. All right, I'll move to adjourn. I guess we'll see everybody next week.
Okay.
See everyone.
Bye.
Bye.